Welcome back to Kushka Garage, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I know I am, because we're going to be talking about miles per gallon, top 5 LB7 Duramax modifications. What do I mean by miles per gallon? I'm talking about the modifications that each one that you put in, every install that you do in this particular sequence will give you exponentially bigger smiles. Now, this isn't necessarily the top 5 list that'll, like, for reliability and for efficiency, because there is a different list for that. I would include much of these same mods, just in a different order. I'm talking about the ones that every time you do a mod, you put in another one, you start up that truck, you're gonna feel the difference. Seat of the pants, you're gonna hear the difference. It's gonna put a big smile on your face, and you are gonna have a lot of fun. And this is the order that I would do it in. But first, word from our sponsors, me. So I got some LB7 Duramax hats. You can click the links right down below this video. You're gonna see my store with probably this shirt on it, these hats. This is the new Kushka Garage logo. That is a Bigfoot standing behind a fire, or a silhouette of a Bigfoot, designed by my girlfriend. She allowed me to use it, put it on my shirts. I even got it on coffee mugs and things. I'll probably put it on a hat eventually, or a different version of it, because the hat font size is a little bit different. But anywho, let's get you turned around. Let's show you old Pig, the Alaskan Overland rig, and let's get into these modifications. So this is Pig, the Alaskan Overland rig. Pig is a 2001 LB7 Duramax GMC Sierra 3500 crew cab long bed dually with a freshly rebuilt 1981 Paris Valley camper on the back of it. I've owned this truck now for about 6 years. This is the centerpiece of my YouTube channel, and I have over 400 videos, most of which are centered around this rig right here. Anywhere from general maintenance, like brakes, brake lines, wheel bearings, all the way up to more performance-oriented modifications like cylinder head, port and polishing, turbo rebuilds, then all the installs and stuff I'm about to show you. So I have some experience with these LB7s, and I can tell you what works. So here we go. So the very first mod that I would do is this PPE Valve right here. So this is an LB7. It is a fixed vane turbo with a wastegate. Once that wastegate builds up with enough pressure from the compressor side of the turbo, it will open up a flap on the back and the exhaust housing that will dump your exhaust into the tailpipe instead of feeding it to the turbine, which will spin up your turbo even faster. And so that is a safeguard. That's very important, so you don't want to pinch this off completely, but you can restrict it. But it is a safeguard so that you don't overspin your turbo, heat it up, blow it up. And we can squeeze out just a few more PSI by putting in this valve here, which pinches down the tube and will restrict that flow to the wastegate, so you can get a few more PSI before that wastegate opens. Now, full disclosure, this is a $30 part, so that's why it's the first mod that I do. But if you have a 100% stock vehicle, you're really not going to notice the benefits of the PPE valve. However, with each preceding mod that we're going to go over next, you will get exponentially more power and more performance out of your turbo because you have this valve. So, $30 part. Literally all you got to do is cut the hose, stick it in there, clamp it. Bob's your uncle. That's it. So that's the very first one that I would do. That brings us to number 2, a tuner. A tuner of some sort. I got the PPE Accelerator Standard. This is my preferred tuner of choice. However, there are a few that you can go through. The best one, of course, is going to be EFI Live. If you can get a dyno tune with EFI Live, that's the absolute best for performance-wise. Otherwise, you can order it over the internet from a tuner of some sorts. There are complications, of course, with that. You gotta have a good tuner. How do you know if you have a good tuner? I don't know, really. There are a few out there that seem pretty reputable and have that social proof from other people. Social proof being like lots of reviews from other people who say it works and they bought it and it runs well. The buy-in for EFI Live, it's gonna be about $1,500. Kind of hurts the pocket a bit because you have to get the box and then the software for your computer. So if you don't have a computer, you do have to buy a computer on top of that. Most people have a computer these days. And then you got to get your tunes. And then every tune after that, like every time you do a mod or a significant upgrade, you're going to want to buy a new tune. And it's going to be about $300 a tune. So you want to plan that out accordingly for your application and your budget. I bought a PPE accelerator tune right off the bat because this is actually the very first mod that I did, because I didn't know that if I was going to like the LB7 Duramax or not. When I first bought it, it was 100% stock, and I got to be honest, it was a turd. It was super slow. My 92 Chevy Silverado 1500 with a Chevy 350 and 5-speed manual could just smoke this truck, no problem, and a bunch of other trucks too at the time. So I was like, well, if I put a tune on it and I still don't like it, then, you know, I'm out $450, and I'll try to recoup that with selling the truck and getting something different. But as soon as I put this tuner on, it was a whole new truck. There is a whole new truck that lives inside of your stock LB7 that is just waiting to come out, and it's waiting to come out with a tune. So if you're not going to go EFI live, the next best thing is going to be a PPE accelerator. There are many other tuners out there as well. So do your homework, find out what works best for you. But this one is regarded as the next best thing to EFI live, and it comes with a host of add-ons in here that are beneficial to you. So this tune comes with 5 different tunes. The very first two tunes are Tow 1 and Tow 2. I keep pig in number 2, which is 90 horsepower and like 160 or 180 pounds of torque. Number 5 is like 200 and something horsepower, 400 something pounds of torque. You can get the hot tunes if you got a built transmission and you really want to push it, and that'll give you an extra 400 horsepower, which is insane. But you're going to want to have like all the fueling mods and the transmission and a built truck. Otherwise, you know, you're gonna start breaking shit. But number 2 works great for me, and it's a beast on the mountains. It's a beast for overlanding. I got a camper on the back of the truck. It is absolutely freaking great, and it still roasts the tires and pretty much smokes everyone on the streets because Big is pretty modded at this point. The other great things about this specifically, it has it'll check all your DTC codes. So if you have a check engine light, you can see what's going on, and you can clear those codes. So if you got yourself a trouble and you got put in limp mode, you Duramax guys should know what limp mode is. It's when your transmission slips, usually between gear 4 and 5. It'll slip and lock your transmission into 1, 2, and 3 gears. Like you can't go above 3rd gear, kind of like tow haul. And that'll allow you to limp home, or you pull over, plug in your scanner, clear the codes, and then you get your transmission back, and then just, you know, stop driving like a dipshit, basically. Mind your gears. You can romp pretty hard between 1 and 3, but then once you get in the 4th and 5th gear, things get a little squirrely. The pressure isn't quite there, and you can limp your transmission. So this will allow you to check those codes, clear those codes, help you with all your diagnostics. This will also check your balance rates. So you Duramax guys, LB7 guys specifically, will hear a lot about balance rates. You know, what are your balance rates? They're talking about your injector balance rates. You want to see if you're +4 or -4. You want to make sure you're within spec. Good diagnostic tool for a variety of reasons. So it can do that as well. Another thing that this does is if you go up in tire size, it's going to throw off your speedometer calibration. So you got bigger tires, and your speedometer might say you're doing 40, but you're doing, you know, whatever that's not 40. I don't know if it goes faster or slower, whatever it is. But it throws off your calibration, and what your speedometer says is not your actual reading and not what you're actually going. So this will help you calibrate up to 44-inch tires. And I'd put in mine. I have the 235s. 235/85 R16s on my dually, and I think that's like 31.75 inches tall. So I dialed that in, brought my speedometer back in calibration. Also, it'll help you calibrate if you change your differentials. So the stock Duramaxes come with 373 gears. If you go up or down for whatever reason, say you're like building out a race truck, you want to put on some like 355 gears, or if you are going like with some Super Swamper 35-inch tires, and you're going up to like 455 gears, you can plug that in here and it will also calibrate your speedometer. And I don't know if it touches your transmission at that point or not. I'm not sure if it calibrates your transmission. If any of you guys are running this, you can let us know in the comments. But it will, or it does have an option to relearn your transmission. So if you have any significant upgrades, or you change your transmission, or you're putting in new tunes or bigger injectors or whatever, and you want to do a transmission relearn, you can do that with this unit as well. It's about $450, kind of does it all, and the performance is freaking amazing. The fuel mileage increase is amazing, and this is the single unit that made me want to keep Pig 6 years ago. After I installed the tune, I was sold. I've gone all the way up to the Tune 5, and it is a lot of fun. Not good for towing because it lugs in those gears longer, but man, it gets up and goes. But now that I have all the modifications on Pig that I do, 45 over sack nozzle injectors, I ported the heads, ported the turbo, rebuilt the turbo, put in a billet aluminum compressor wheel, ported the exhaust manifolds, upgraded the driver's side exhaust manifold to a BD full bore, ported that, port matched the up pipes, got an aftermarket downpipe, ported that, exhaust, cold air intake, turbo horn, all of that. All of that equates to amazing airflow in and out. Now, if I'm not careful, I can limp it in Tune 2, the one that I'm in now. So I got to be careful. So that says to me that since the transmission has a threshold of about 450 horsepower and around 850, 900 pounds of torque before it starts to limp, it says to me that I'm at least approaching that, or right around there, or right on the nose in Tune 2. And I still got 3 more tunes to go, but I'm not going to touch it because I got a stock transmission. So I try to be nice to Pig because those transmissions are expensive. So that's the tuner. Let's go to the very third mod. So by now you should be having fun. That PPE valve at first was very underwhelming, but now that you got some fuel and some timing and your transmission's dialed in a little bit better, everything's working a little bit better, now you should be seeing a little bit more PSI. That wastegate's going to stay closed just a little bit longer, so you can squeeze a little bit more performance out of that turbo. And then with this next mod that I'm going to show you, we're going to squeeze out even more. And the third mod I would do for miles per gallon is a free-flowing 4-inch or 5-inch exhaust. Pig's a 2001 LB7 Federal truck, so it did not come with a cat converter, so I can just straight pipe this. I have, or I put the muffler on, which to me, I like the way the muffler sounds more so than the straight pipe. A little deeper, throatier sound. Got more of a classic street vehicle rip to it. And also it's a little quieter in the cab. I like to roll down the windows a little bit and back so the dog breath doesn't fog up my windows. And if it's straight piped, it makes it really loud in the cab. But this is going to give you a beautiful tone, as well as it is going to considerably cut down on back pressure. And I will talk about that here in just a second. And so upgrading your exhaust from the stock 3.5-inch with a muffler or muffler and cat converter, mind your emission laws, of course. I'm in Alaska, we have 0 emission laws, and my truck didn't come with a cat converter anyway, so I wasn't cutting anything off, was not breaking any rules, and just improving the performance. So when you upgrade from a 3.5 to a 4-inch, you are cutting down on that back pressure. And what is back pressure? It's like, well, when your turbo is exhausting that gas at a high velocity, if you have a pinched down pipe, it's kind of like trying to run a marathon and breathe through a McDonald's straw. You don't quite have that airflow to exhale or even inhale, and so it's going to be a choking point, and you're going to feel a lot of pressure in your lungs. That's not good. The truck kind of operates the same way, only when that pressure builds up, it's pressure pushing back on the turbine, and it's going to slow that turbine down, which is going to affect the performance of your turbo. It's going to slow down your velocity, and it's going to create a lot of heat. That heat translates to EGTs. EGTs are exhaust gas temperatures, and if you stay too hot for too long, you start burning your engine apart, cooking the oils, cooking the innards. It's a bad day for everyone. Super expensive to fix everything that it damages. So you put on that performance, you put on that 4-inch or 5-inch exhaust, you cut down on all of those restrictions, you let your truck breathe, it cools down faster. Those EGTs will rise when you step on it, but they'll cool down faster because you are exhaling all of that exhaust gas at a much faster rate. Your turbo's happy, your engine's happy, and if your turbo can spin faster on the turbine side, then it's going to spin faster on the compressor side, which means it's going to put even more air into your engine, and it's this cyclical thing where it just helps the overall performance. And it sounds cool, and a truck that sounds cool and performs better gets you more miles per gallon. So that is number 3. Let's get to number 4. It's going to be a cold air intake. Now, the other intake is good up to 500 horsepower, which is extremely easy to get, but it still leaves a lot on the table as far as airflow. So I got a boot on mine, or a cover, but I have a cold air intake here. Some wouldn't call it a true cold air intake because it's not boxed off, but it's boxed off enough, and it's going to give you significant amount more flow than a stock box. And this tube isn't corrugated or pinched off in any way or have any harsh angles. It's all very smooth and runs right into the turbo horn, which for mine is an aftermarket. I would add that to the list if I had any more than 5, but we're only doing 5 modifications in this video. But this would be my 4th modification, because you do get that seat of the pants feel. You do get more horsepower. You are going to bring in more cold air into your engine, and the more cold and dense air that you bring into your engine, the better combustion you're going to get. Better combustion, you get more performance, you get better fuel mileage, more miles per gallon. They are kind of expensive on the diesel trucks. You can get a similar setup on a gasser for like $70, but these go for like $300 on up, which is crazy to me. So if you have fabrication skills, good thing to fabricate. The other benefit to a cold air intake, besides the obvious performance, is you get a little bit more of that compressor side turbo whistle, especially if you have the bigger turbo horn. That's a full 3-inch turbo horn. It's not a ported stock. It's a full 3-inch. Opens it up, gives you a little bit more turbo sound. Plus, this air filter is a dry filter, and this one specifically really opened up the turbo sound a lot and got a lot more whistle. And then, of course, because I ported the turbo and I upgraded the compressor to a billet aluminum compressor wheel, 11 blade, it's a little taller, a little more aggressive, also creates a little bit more whistle as well. It all adds up. So that is number 4. And the 5th one is going to surprise you, because it is also what a lot of people recommend as being your very first mod for very good reasons. How many of you seen this coming? A lift pump. Lift pumps are fantastic for a variety of reasons. I'm actually due for a filter change here. This is a FAS titanium series 95 gallon per hour. They don't make these anymore, but this was the bee's knees 6 years ago, and it's been pumping strong ever since. This one, I've added a fuel heater to it, which is another great modification if you have one of these. I'm also at some point going to utilize a couple of ports to feed in my coolant lines, so we get full-time fuel heater activation, which is fantastic if you live in cold climates, Midwest, Alaska, wherever it's freezing, anywhere where your fuel can gel. Let's talk about this for a second. So lift pumps are fantastic for a variety of reasons, and why many people recommend it or just install it as their very first mod is reliability. Especially if you have an LB7 Duramax, you're gonna have inherent injector issues with those OEM injectors. And three things we have going against this LB7, guys, is one, the ease of access to the injectors is a pain in the ass because the injectors are located under the valve cover. Makes for a quieter engine, and your injectors stay nice and clean, but it makes it more difficult to get to. Two, they don't last that long. The OEM injectors, like they say 100, 150,000 or more, but a lot of people are saying 50,000 to 100,000 miles, you're going to need new injectors. And we're talking, I think it's rated at like 30, 36-hour job. It took me a long time. I mean, I did gaskets and studs and port and polishing and rebuilt the heads and everything, but just getting down to the valves itself took a long time. And yeah, it's a job you only want to do once, so I wouldn't recommend getting OEM injectors. I'd get some sack nozzle injectors. But the lift pump does a few things for you. One, it has a water separator, which is cool. Two, it has a fuel filter, so that's an additional fuel filter on top of the one that you have in your engine bay. Three, it's an air-water separator, and the big performance boost that it's going to give you is these Duramax engines do not come with a lift pump stock. And a lift pump is going to pull that fuel from your tank, push it to your primary fuel pump, and then your CP3 fuel pump is going to pressurize that, send it to your injectors. Well, your CP3 and now the CP4 does all of that by itself already. It pulls the fuel, it pressurizes it, and then it feeds it to your injectors through the high pressure lines. Once you start adding modifications and even just a tune, really, you start to demand more fuel than you can feed it. And so what that lift pump will do is it'll provide a steady at least 10 psi to your pump, to your primary pump, so your CP3 is no longer struggling to pull air and compress it, or pull fuel and compress it. It's just getting fed a constant stream of it, so all it needs to do is compress it, feed it to your injectors. And so if you notice, if you don't have a lift pump and you have at least a tune, you'll notice as you get up in RPM, your truck kind of falls flat on its ass. It stops performing. It stops at a certain point and just kind of doesn't want to go past a certain threshold. That's because you're not getting enough fuel. And so the lift pump is going to provide that additional fuel, all the fuel that it needs to get you all the way through the RPM range. Up to a certain horsepower, of course, then you're going to need a double pumper or a stroker fuel pump of some sort, or, you know, bigger injectors. The list goes on. But for your very first 5 mods, you're not going to have to worry about all of that because you are not going to be making the horsepower at that point anyways. So just a lift pump is going to get you there. And this all together with all 5 mods easily will get you up to 500 horsepower or more. It's gonna, well, I think your turbo will be the limiting factor at that point. You're gonna max out your turbo, and most dynos with a max effort LB7 Duramax will pull about 530 horsepower. There are mods you can do that turbo to squeeze another 40 to 60 horsepower out of it. I cover that in Project LB7 Duramax Spool Up, where we port the exhaust side of the turbo. And if you do that alone on a stock LB7, the dynos are saying you'll get 40 horsepower. If you have a modded truck, like you did the whole list of these 5 mods, plus you ported just the exhaust side of your turbo, it can get you up to 60 horsepower. So I ported the exhaust side, I ported the compressor side, and then I rebuilt the turbo, of course, put in new journal bearings, 360 thrust bearing, and then I put in that upgraded billet aluminum compressor wheel. So maybe, I don't know, I'm probably close to that 60 horsepower range at least. We'll see. I don't know. I use my own little MTG or MTX. Let me just see what it is here. There it is. So I use this OBD Link MX Plus unit, which plugs right into your OBD port, and then you hook it up to your phone through Bluetooth. and it also does a variety of things: DTC codes, ABS, transmission codes, as well as it will gauge the PSI of your turbo just through its calculations. And I put that up against my analog gauge, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so its mathematics are pretty good. But it will also gauge your fuel mileage, and the one that I like is the horsepower and torque rating at the crank, of course, because it can't measure it at the tires. It just uses all your sensors, and it seems pretty close on all the trucks that I have put it on. It seems pretty close to what the manufacturer says the crank settings are. I put it on PEG with all these modifications, and I got just over 600 horsepower and over 1,200 pounds of torque at the crank, which by the time it reaches the wheels, you got to take off at least 26%, because it's got to go from the engine through your torque converter, transmission, transfer case, drive line, differential, axles, and then finally to your tires. So you subtract all of that power loss, and that puts PEG at the wheel right around 445 to 450 horsepower, which is kind of what I thought it was anyways, because that's about the threshold of when you start to slip the transmission. So, and that's adding on my toe tune, so I still got 3 more tunes to go. So I forgot where I was going with that. So anyways, that is my top 5 miles per gallon LB7 Duramax mods that I would make. So let's go over it again. It would be the PPE valve, it would be a tune, it would be the exhaust, and the cold air intake, and then the lift pump. And that's just for miles per gallon, just pure performance. Every time you get in your truck, you want to be a little bit more like, hell yeah, that was fun. Like, hell yeah, you want to get excited to start up your truck and drive it around. And every preceding mod is going to get you exponentially more miles per gallon if you do it in that order. And really, any one of those orders will be fine. You can do it by reliability mods if you do that. I think I would go for the lift pump first, then the exhaust, and then the tune, and then probably the cold air intake, PPE valve. You can throw in there whatever you want. You can always make that your first modification if you want, because it's 30 bucks or less now. You can probably get them for 15 bucks, but it's a super easy mod. And as you do all the other mods, it'll make it that much more potent. For me, with a PPE valve, since I keep my truck tuned down pretty low, haven't seen over 30 PSI. Usually, I'm not romping on it anyways, because I got a camper on the back. But I'll usually see like 27 to 29 on the high end. But nothing crazy, because I don't have it tuned up very high, and I don't stomp on it because I got a stock transmission. And this is, old work truck, overland truck, so I want it to last a while, and I don't want it to break down. I definitely don't want it to break down when I'm on the mountains, so I just do some nice work performance mods for reliability, for fun, for performance, because it sounds cool, it feels cool, and these are cool ass old trucks. So all right, hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Hope it brought you some value, some insights, some smiles. And I think I'm going to do more like this, because like I said, I've had this truck for 6 years. I have a whole YouTube channel built around it, and I have not done any of these top 5 this, top 5 that, recommendations, sit in your truck and just bullshit kind of videos like everyone else has. It's kind of a rite of passage. And I think it's time to start telling you guys what I think of all these various mods I've done, all these various parts I've put in, start doing reviews. And if I had it to do all over again, like, what would I do to PEG 6 years later? How would I do things differently? I can say right now, probably not too different to where it would actually make a difference in anything. From point A to point B, I think we did a pretty good job overall. But I did a lot to this, and I'm sure you guys are curious, how does it perform with ported cylinder heads versus non-ported cylinder heads? What do you think about stock injectors versus the SAC 45 over injectors? How's the cold air intake versus an OEM? Does a turbo horn even make a difference? How about the aftermarket full 3-inch intercooler pipes on the hot side and cold side? Did that make a difference? How about the intake heater delete plug that I did. I just deleted the plug altogether. Now it's just free flowing. And I ported the Y pipe. Does that make a difference? How about the aftermarket transmission cooler, the large aluminum transmission cooler versus the stock? How much of a difference did that make? How about the exhaust? Like, is it really worth it going over 3.5 inch? You just watch this video so you know it's totally worth it. But, oh yeah, and the 130 amp alternator versus the stock 105 amp, like, does that make a difference? Is LB7 Duramax a good platform for camping, for a camper truck, for overlanding, for like, there's a lot of different review videos that we could be doing, and I think we should. So, thanks for watching. Hope this helped you out in some way. I'll see you on the next one.